Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Abstraction Cup. Today we're in another winners bracket round where we have Unicorn Butterfly versus Terracotta. Yobrevelcs. I'm just gonna. I think that's just Clever Boy. So I'm just gonna say it like Clever Boy. But looking at this C2 versus C31, we've seen both teams triumph over the round of 64 last week, and now they must clash heads against each other. This is going to be a pretty intense matchup, knowing the names on both of these sides. But for now, sit back, relax, and just enjoy the scrimmage. In the commentary booth is going to be Nightkore. Joining me is going to be Epic Man 2. How are you doing?
It's Bashi time! Hello.
It's nice.
Yeah, this is certainly a winner's bracket match that we got over here. Both these teams went out of the round of 64 from sweeps alone, so I'm really interested to see how this one's going to go in particular, whether we're going to see Unicorn Butterfly pull off a miraculous effort, just sweeping out of Terracotta yobrevelcs, or we see vice versa as well, where Terracotta yobrevelcs proves their will to at least take a few points off the likes of our seeded second flight team over here.
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be hard, I think, for Terracotta Clever Boys. I would say maybe to take a point, because looking at the qualifiers and round of 64, like, they don't really show any weakness. Like, even their lowest seed for the qualifiers was in 996 without getting fourth, so it's gonna be like maybe just Terracotta Clever Boys maybe might need to pull some aces up their sleeves if they do want to take this victory off Unicorn Butterfly. But now, I think just looking from their stats, I'm not sure. Like, it seems that Terracotta's strong points are the long no picks, but the only problem is that is Unicorn Butterfly's strongest picks as well, getting seed 1 and 2 on the LNs respectively. So, what is the game plan? Do they want to go for LN? Do they want to maybe pick some of the tougher routes to try, make Unicorn Butterfly find a miss? I'm not really too sure. I think they're just going to have to play to their strengths.
Absolutely. I think when you're in the position of Terracotta yobrevelcs, where your strongest suit in this scenario is going to be some of these long no Orient maps, and you're up against a team that's also just as strong on them, if not even stronger on these picks in particular, you kind of just lose that advantage that you would usually have going into most matches either way. So I think for the likelihood of Terracotta yobrevelcs, I think it would be safe to say they might try to see whether they can branch out to some of these other picks to see whether they can at least try and see if there's at least an open crack in the window where they can exploit the likes of Unicorn Butterfly here, because especially with the likes of Pavan and Kakaway in the same team, there isn't really much you can do if you are familiar with both these players being some of the strongest that Thailand has to offer when it comes to their players, especially in the Mania World Cup, for example.
Forget even strongest in Thailand, just strongest we've seen in Mania in modern day standards. So
precisely.
Terracotta Clever Boys are going to be they're going to be winning the roll off. I think it was 43 to 67, not mentioning anything, but okay. Going to be hybrid free protect. I can totally see why they would go for hybrid free in this scenario.
Yeah, hybrid free makes sense to pick. I definitely think that out of all the other hybrids, hybrid free kind of stands its own ground as its own regulated pick, considering for the fact that it's the more relatively rice biased hybrid. So especially with it being on OD8 and having all the LN patterns that it has, which are somewhat reminiscent of some earlier game hybrid 1 picks that you'd see in other tournaments, I definitely think it makes sense that to even try and protect something like that for a bit of a safe pick. But at the same time, the fact that it's on ODA and you still have the LN patterns here, which are still relatively hard to hit if you aren't too well adjusted to at least accuracy, just brute forcing accuracy on when it comes on those patterns, especially Hybrid Free can definitely be a pick that comes with some massive recoil damage if you're not too careful. But on that note, it does look like Rice 6 and Rice Free will get the ban, so that's going to be Latin Hyperventilation going off the board.
For Terracotta, I can totally see why Rice 3 be banned. I was doing a small bit of digging through profiles before the match, and one of them said that they weren't really a fan of Core Jack, so like it does make sense, I think. But now, Hybrid Free is going to be the first map, so Terracotta probably going to be jumping into their Protect, which I think is a pretty appropriate response for the first pick of the match.
Indeed. Definitely expect it to be one of the safer picks for Terracotta yobrevelcs, or at least in their mind, as this is going to have some of the more rigid parrying out of all the other hybrids. I mean, especially the fact that this is about 3 minutes of length, and there is a ton of these pretty dense Rice parries accompanied by some LN jump scares here and there that can be really hard to act on ODA, like I have pointed to earlier on, as it does look like we're going to be seeing Konkawa and Kirchhoff 1, 2, 3 make their way into this pick. I guess we're going to have to see how things go, because I do not know much about Kirchhoff myself as opposed to Konkawa here, but surely there may be something that they got to pull out of the bag.
I think Kirchhoff was the more LM primary focused person, and actually, it's a fun fact. This map is very recent, coming from the Mania Mapping World Cup team. It is going to be China Team D who actually have made this, so just very fresh out the water, I guess. And here we are.
Yeah. Thank a lot for that, by the way. I probably wouldn't have known the map existed without him, because originally I was gonna participate in the Mapping World Cup, but then me and my team were not like fully motivated. So the fact that we're just using a map from the qualification stage right out the water is just really funny, as it does look like both players are actually really equal with each other going into this build-up, where you just have a lot of these Rice bursts, and they're very light at that as well before we go into the first course.
I think at this point, like, it's going to be whoever does find more of those mishaps, because looking at this map, it does really contain a lot, as you said earlier, kind of more the Rice with blended LN aspects. You're seeing a lot of dumps, seeing a lot of those mini jacks and shields alongside with some of those LN scattered releases. Kirchhoff is taking a slight accuracy drop, but I would presume in a map like this it is pretty natural. Conway slightly faltering as well, but as we do get into more kind of the full LN section, I think both players are kind of more thriving on this, as the releases are a bit more simple. But now as we do get a small break, we'll have to see what happens in the second half.
Yeah, indeed. The second half is going to be where the map really starts to ramp up in terms of how it addresses the patterns that it did introduce over in the first course, where it had a lot of Rice patterns, but there's just a lot of embedded LNs alongside them. For example, you have some of these reverse shields that often just transition into mini jacks right afterwards that are pretty hard to be able to switch back into and stuff, alongside these LN clams that you got here. But because of those drops that Kirchhoff was taking way earlier in the map, it does look like Konkawa is going to have an advantage going into this. But even with some of the falters that Konkawa had on some very small sections of the map, it does like they're going to at least pull out a pretty good advantage by only 5,000 points, if it doesn't come down to a miss, if anything.
Yeah, I could totally see something like that happening. In the last quarter, I guess both players are still going to be trying to hold on to their consistency. Kirchhoff catching their accuracy back up to the 99.7, but will it be enough going into the ending? Like, the ending does get a lot more technical and LN heavy, but how we see Konkawa perform for the remainder of the map, like, even if it could miss at this point, won't really change much.
Yeah. I mean, we are at the end of the map. This is pretty much the final section of the map, and this is essentially the point where all the difficulty is gone. So you just have like the final section of the final chorus, as you'd expect in most J-core oriented songs from the likes of Zack, for example. And that's gonna be a 997k, almost 998k on this map. What?
Both players getting off a really good start.
Bro. 146 perfects and a V1 double S rate. All right, Concolway, sure. That's a bit of an insane breakpoint there, I have to say.
Yeah, even with a miss, I'd say decided Kankawa, I still think it wouldn't really make much of a difference. Well, it really depends where the miss was, but even then, like it just kind of goes to show how important MA control is as well. But still, both
Hmm.
players on the sides, I can see why Kirchhoff would protect this, as they were very comfortable with this map. It's just the fact that you're facing someone like C2. It can definitely be hard to take a point.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you don't really have a lot of picks that are super advantageous to your team. It does look like we are going to be seeing LN2 being thrown out in response by the likes of UnicornButterfly, and Pavin going to be joining the fray on that note as well. So this is pretty much really similar to the likes of Hybrid Free in terms of how it addresses some of these patterns at this specific tempo, and it's very kind of wildcardish when it comes to how it also incorporates some technical influences in the map as well, being one of our customs for this random 32 map by the likes of Silicosis 2, aka Cabo Free. So I definitely think that it makes sense that UnicornButterfly would resort to this one in response to, because this is probably the most similar you can go to Hybrid Free without that map in particular, just in the LN category.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Um, it's also, as you said, it's quite long at 2 minutes 50. And just kind of because of the abrasiveness of the map, 1EA can definitely be a bit tricky to kind of hold on to. So I'm not really too sure on how this map will go. Like, this is UnicornButterfly's pick, but knowing the nature of the map, Kirchhoff still can have that chance of holding on.
Indeed, especially as we are going into this introductory section, it does look like pretty much both players are on very good accuracy right now. Even Kirchhoff being 0.05%, a little higher than Pavin, but who knows how long that's going to last for, as this is only just the intro to the map. There's still a lot of tricks up the sleeve of this map that it has to pull, even with only a few hundred points of a difference that separates the two. It does look like there's a small bias in the favor of Kirchhoff, but there's still a lot of time to be able to see whether that can simmer out or at least prevail in the likelihood in this map.
Actually, as I just seen there, I think Pavin did drop 1 or 2 greats in one of the LN sectors, but as we kick into the full LN density area, it's not going to be too jump stream oriented. Like, you do have a lot of more technical bursts, and that's going to be Kirchhoff finding that pretty nasty miss as well. Going to be an early release drop. And it's not really, like, against C2, it's definitely not one of the misses that you do want to have a bit more, but as the density does rail up, hopefully Pavin might find a trade back against Kirchhoff. But looking at Pavin right now and how consistent they are in this bit compared to the start, doesn't really seem like it, unfortunately. And as we do get to the stare down as well.
Indeed, we are more than halfway through the map as we go into the back half. The final third is upon us as we have the stop and go motion type of section, where it's just really about the section that introduces some of these aiming breaks that come back and out of this song. Kirchhoff with that one miss is really going to put a massive damper in the scoreline for them, as that's only going to push 8,000 points for the favor of Pavin at the moment, and it does not look like it's going to switch back anytime soon, because knowing Pavin, they are a very strong consistency player, especially on these LN patterns. So missing on a map like this against a player such as Pavin and Konkawi especially is pretty much death sentence, and unfortunately Kirchhoff had to be one of the victims of that.
Yeah, and especially now, like, even without the drop, I still think it wouldn't have been enough, as we haven't seen from the start. Pavin did make that great comeback, holding on to that 99.87 there, 8.88, and only won 200 as well.
Damn. Another insane score that comes out from the likes of UnicornButterfly as they're looking to just crack their knuckle on a variety of picks, but Terracotta yobrevelcs is going to try and shift the tides a bit. We're going Rise 2, and seeing how some of these other maps have gone so far, this is I'm not entirely sure about this pick. I mean, this is a very dense jump stream map, but at the same time, this can be very chokeable, even despite being 215 VPN, which is slower than most other jump stream picks that we usually have in these kinds of tournaments nowadays. It's just really about the anchor and trill control in this one.
Well, maybe that's why Terracotta maybe try to rely on, because while we have seen their great performance at LL Hybrid, it just wasn't really enough compared to UnicornButterfly. So maybe what I'm trying to see here is Terracotta probably gonna jump into the third trump card, that being Rice, maybe try to hope that UnicornButterfly does find a miss.
Indeed, yeah. This is definitely one of those picks within the Rice category where it's like, if you don't have the likes of Rice 3 hyperventilation in your map pool, that is the longest map in the regular pool by far, being at 4 minutes of length. This one clocks in at 3.5 minutes or so, especially with a 1.05 upgrade for the original map, which at least buffs it a little bit, makes it a little hard to remain consistent on, as much as this is much within warm-up range of a map. It just really depends on like how both these players are going to be going about it. But we see a switch out from Terracotta yobrevelcs to be seeing combo power come in, so maybe this could say the difference for either team.
Well, maybe a guess I would also have to say with picking Rice is that if hold on, give me a minute. If Kirchhoff was to play this, or to play another map, then maybe UnicornButterfly could take advantage of that and pick LN on maybe Combo Power, who might not be so confident on LN. So maybe going into Rice might be the case here.
Yeah, I think it's really just Terracotta yobrevelcs trying to at least walk around that rule where you can only really play maps for 3 times in a row before you have to force a switch. So bringing on combo power for this pick, I think, is working out for them so far, considering for the fact that combo power is at least powering through a lot of these patterns and ensuring that they can remain having good accuracy, even if it's having a little bit of a small bias in the favor of Conkalway right now. It does seem like there's still a lot of points in the map where either side can really trip up, especially in this pre-core section where there's a lot of trill jump scares, so you really need to try and remain on top of no matter what, because it just does not stop until you get to the cores, and even the cores just really becomes a slow burn the longer you go into it.
And here we are we're into the course, as you were saying, gonna be absolute overload of split trills, jump trills, even 1-hand, 2-hand trills as well. Looking at both these players, just look at their consistency, 99.98, 99.87. Like, the score difference is very minor. Like, even a miss on the side, well, I wouldn't really say 200 really, but a miss can still change anything, especially as we're heading into the last third in the map.
Indeed, especially with maps like this, it does come to a point where even greats begin to feel like misses, especially on maps that are not inherently as much on the physical side, but more on consistency, and that's pretty much the point where even misses, as futile as they are, it just makes Ultimate's judgments feel a lot worse in comparison, especially with Conkalway here, maintaining that 99.98% accuracy as is, 2,000 points in their favor, but Combo Power is doing a really, really good job keeping them in check no matter what the map is throwing at them. Even with a lot of these trills, it doesn't seem like there's been any major misjudges coming out from Combo Power. Even with some minor drops here and there, they need to watch out for the quad. Okay, there we go.
Quad has been hit, but I do believe I did see 1 or 2 200 strap on the side of Combo Power, which is only going to be extending the score lead as we head into the final KI. Again, it's going to kind of be more consistency, but going to be a bit longer than the previous course. But both are still holding on, like, they're just essentially a brick wall.
Indeed. That's the problem with this round in particular. There's just like so many good players in the winners bracket, especially, that have to juke it out on such dense maps like this, for example, and even the best scores may not even be enough when you're facing some all-time champions from other countries that you'd never face in like many other tournaments. But that is going to be a 9-9K that combo power is up against only 50 perfects. What?
That's a
Huh?
those are some very impressive scores from both players. And it just
My
got to
days,
show
bro.
like the expectations now for C2 compared to, I don't know, like 60 years ago. But Unicorn Butterfly gonna be jumping into LN3, gonna be jumping into Step Protect, and for the potential
Ooh.
last for their potential last pick as well, does make sense.
Yeah, this is definitely gonna shift Terracotta yobrevelcs into a very precarious situation where they pretty much did have a lot of showing to do on a lot of these LN maps, especially. So I assume they're going to try and bring out Kirchhoff back into the ring for this pick, as it's going to be Algorithm. So this one is the more technical LN out of the three that we got here, and I definitely expect UnicornButterfly to at least throw this one out to see whether they can exploit a lot of teams, as this is pretty much one of those picks in the LN pool that's one of the shortest, so definitely one of the bigger risks to take when you need it.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And even then, like even though Unicorn Butterfly does have a good advantage on this pick, like only being 1 minute 59 and being very technical as well, it is still achievable for to score points on this, maybe relying on Unicorn Butterfly finding a miss. They haven't actually for this entire match, and even round of 64 as well.
Yep, as the map is going to make a start, the arrow goes down, and it seems like both these teams are already ready to rock and roll once again without really much time to waste at this point. Unicorn Butterfly is going to be on the pace for a 5-0 sweep if we end up seeing it, but Kirchhoff is still a really good, strong LN player from the likes of Terracotta Overvalk, so I definitely would imagine there is a strong chance that they can prove some fighting worth on a map like this. It just really depends on if Pavan is going to find some chances to falter on this map as well.
And it's back ready to just starts off with a bang, like showing a lot of those shields, a lot of those more bursty dump patterns as well, with a lot of those scatters. Kirchhoff is faltering a slight bit, finding a few 200s here and there, but again, with the nature of this map, I think keeping out the combo is a lot more important.
Indeed, especially with a map as short as this is only 1 second off from being 2 minutes of length. So even a miss is going to really change way too much that you could really anticipate on a map like this, especially when you have a lot of these staggered LN flams that and dumps as well that you'd usually see in a plethora of MindCleaks maps. It does look like Pavin's going to at least use that to their advantage with about 2,000 points of an advantage, and it's just really hard for Kirchhoff to be able to catch up in terms of accuracy. But as I say that, they miss on the transition to this next section.
Right before this, right before the speed up as well, that is going to spell grave danger for Kirchhoff, and I think just even struggling to catch up now, like not being at the 400 combo, it's definitely not the best side for them, especially as we head into the outro. The 10k score lead and the map just start to calm down as we have seen for the intro. Unfortunately, I don't think Kirchhoff is going to be able to catch up at this point.
Yeah, the map ends just like that, and even despite not being able to take this one by storm, it's still a really good score from the likes of Terracotta yobrevelcs, as Unicorn Butterfly is going to make it a match point right on that note. Only one great that we've seen on this map, and LN2 from the likes of Pavin, just doing his usual magic, just trying to prove that they are a force to be reckoned with, especially going into the rest of the tournament where they're gonna really need to try and fight if they're looking for some of the high prizes that we got in this tournament. So match point, Terracotta yobrevelcs in the driver's seat for the next pick. I feel like at this point, there isn't really much they can do. They could just throw out LN1, but that's going to be really risky. But they go Hybrid 1 instead. Okay.
I can see something like Hybrid 1. Let's hope they have picked wisely here, because this could potentially be their last pick. Hey, this is your map.
Yeah, this is a collab I wanted to make with Anifrix for ages on end. We just decided to like throw it in for this tournament just while, you know, we had some time to kill. And also because when it comes to this tournament, I kind of wanted to diversify how hybrids are really done within tournaments as well. So this is the quote-unquote hybrid, the stream hybrid of our round. Albeit, it's not defined by the BPM, but more the fact that there's a lot of dump and swing rhythm incorporated within this one. Being one of the longer picks that we got in this round, and this is definitely one of the maps that kind of makes it a little harder for all teams to kind of work with, but at the same time, still relatively comfortable, I want to argue. Also, hello, Kirchhoff. I see you in the IRC chat.
Oh my. Yeah, essentially, as you were saying, this is going to be very fun. This is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Like, especially as you were saying, how it is very different from a lot of the other hybrid. How it is a lot different from other hybrid ones. So, I'm very curious to see how this plays out, because I didn't really have time to look at the map pool, so I'm just relying off the notes essentially.
Indeed, this one going to start off with a lot of relatively flowy LN patterns. This is the more LN biased hybrid that we have on the board, as it looks like both Pavin and Kirchhoff are basically tugging it out on this first verse right here. Not really much you can go on right now, as they're both just throwing hands and just like they're pretty much just like, you know, trying to look for a cross, but then also comes another cross from the opponent, essentially. So it's really hard for either players to be able to dig one out, dig a hole out of the other for the time being. Although Pavin comes in with a few hundred points of an advantage for just a little bit, but Kirchhoff is not phasing just yet. Even with having dropped a bit, that's not going to really grant them the safest lead for the time being going into the first course.
I do believe a 200 was dropped by both players, but as we still approach the map, again, it is long at 3 minutes 20, but like you're already seeing like how both these players are handling on a lot more dump, a lot more of those scattered LN releases as well, alongside some of the LN trills, which can be very devious to kind of hold on to, I guess, if I'd have to say.
Yeah. Especially with a map pool like this, there's just a lot of patterns that are just being thrown out. Even for this being the early game, there's just a lot of maps that just make it hell for so many players to go through, because this is a tournament that has so many strong players, especially with the likes of UnicornButterfly seating at number 2 and Terracotta yobrevelcs being a really strong team, but only somehow seating at number 31 out of all the other players that we have joining on this tournament as well. So some more drops come out from Kirchhoff as well prior to what I was saying. That's going to grant Pavin about 7,000 points of advantage going throughout the second course. And at this point, it's going to be really hard to recover from the likes of Kirchhoff, just because of how consistent Pavin's been throughout this entire game, alongside Konkawa as well. Even when it came down to Combo Power's brief appearance on the likes of Rice too, it's just really about the consistency game and just how it can translate to a variety of other picks that at least will need that for, you know, when it comes to most matches here in particular.
Yeah, I can 100% see that. But maybe there might be room for Kirchhoff to make that comeback in the ending, especially as it does get a lot more heavier on the vocals, and we're seeing a lot more of that abrasiveness. But again, with Kirchhoff finding that miss earlier on, definitely is very hard to find some of that leeway, and with only 100k score of the map left, I'm not really too sure if they'll be able to find any comebacks. So I think, unfortunately for this, I think they're going to be left back in the dust, as UnicornButterfly are going to be crossing the finish line first.
Indeed, Unicorn Butterfly going to use their magic to fly through this match, as it's going to be a 5-0 sweep, 997k to put down the likes of the Terracotta yobrevelcs on the winner's bracket and throw them down into the loser's bracket. Unfortunate as it is, it's just really the competition in this tournament is so hard for anyone to be able to match that. Even some of our greater mid-seeds are just being thrown down into the loser's bracket, as unfortunate as it is, as Unicorn Butterfly is going to make it quick into the round of 16 bracket, while Terracotta yobrevelcs is going to be knocked down into the loser's bracket to face between L45, G45, 30545, or Momachis and Joseon Corporation. So, going to be a bit of an interesting match, I want to say.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Look, I do believe both teams are mini World Cup players as well, so it is going to be very interesting to see, well, firstly, how that losers bracket match will turn out, and then secondly, next week on how the match of Terracotta will happen as well.
Exactly, especially since next week there's only really 2 teams that they will have to face between the likes of Starblaze and or Dragons. Dragons literally being their Russian equivalent, and Starblaze and Odd is going to be a team between the likes of Aero and Unitor as well. So more strong players that will be duking it out in the winner's bracket depending on who wins that one in the match. In fact, it's still relatively soon as well. That match is going to be happening today as well in just about 3 hours from now. Well, 3.5 hours even. So keep on a lookout for that if you will. And we still have some more matches that we're going to be pushing through as well. First, you need to see we got 2 matches that will be broadcasted. Kasak Bazi vs Risky Fan Club in the loser bracket, and alternatively, QQ Robot and the Disciple, the Triple T, will be fighting it out in the low winners bracket as well. So, interested in either of them, do feel free to continue watching, as this is basically gonna write it off for this match as well. Quick and easy. Nightkore, would you like to make any other remarks before we close this one off?
I think you said what I wanted to say already, so that's really handy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all good, it's all good.
I should have left more room, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Once again, I've been Epic Man 2, joined by Nightkore. We will catch you all in 30 minutes. Be there, be square. Thank you all.
See ya.